right. Well, this is a DevOps Dispatch live at KubeCon North America, Chicago 2023. I think I got all of that in there at once. My name is Laura Santamaria, and I am a lead developer advocate at Dell, and I have a very special guest with me. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, I'm Matt Butcher. I'm the CEO of Fermyon Technologies, where we're building kind of the next wave of cloud computing. I've been around in the cloud native ecosystem for so long.
It's going to be fun.
The vibe here at KubeCon this year is just so good this year.
Is it really?
It's so much fun.
Excellent. Well, good. I mean, I've been hearing a lot of this is more cloud native con than KubeCon this year. There's so much going on. That is true.
Yeah, I agree. I hadn't thought about it that way, but that's it, right? There's just so many things now. And
it's pretty cool to watch, isn't it?
Yeah. I remember the first KubeCon. When it was like when we could all see each other across the same room and you pretty much knew most of the people. And to just look at this and go, wow.
I mean, there's just definitely so many people you don't know. I mean, I can no longer throw a plushie at people, which I guess is probably a good thing. Maybe I shouldn't be doing that much anymore.
Just switch to hockey pucks this year.
Oh, no. I was thinking paper airplanes might actually work.
Okay. That does sound gentler. Yeah.
It's a little gentler, a little gentler. But I heard that there was a wonderful WASM day earlier. Mm-hmm. So you're very heavily into WebAssembly over at Fermyon in general, but also you specifically. So just because I know there's a lot of people who listen to this podcast that might not know what WebAssembly is, can you give the 90-second, what is this thing?
Oh, yeah. 90 seconds. Sure, no problem. No, I'm just kidding. I'm giving you a hard time.
5 minutes, 20 minutes is fine.
I mean, the thing about it is that at its core, WebAssembly is a binary format.
Right.
Which is a kind of a boring way to talk about it. But, when we talk about cloud technologies in general, right? We talk about virtual machines, we talk about containers. WebAssembly kind of falls in the same category, except it's really scoped to the application. So if a virtual machine encapsulates an entire operating system, and a container, encapsulates your application in its file system, and there's kind of this pie-sliced shape of the operating system. Mm-hmm. WebAssembly is really just that binary that you're going to execute and just the supporting files that it needs. And then, package them up into this binary format, and it's wonderful because it's platform neutral. It can run on, Intel, it can run on ARM, can run on Windows, can run on Linux. You can run it in like RTOS systems and Mac OS, and just about anything in there, you can kind of get it running.
Now, I heard that it's also a little bit of all of the various things with, you can run it on the server, you can run it on the client side, you can run it, I guess, on your phone, maybe?
Oh, yeah.
You can just run it all over the place, which is kind of fun.
Yeah, we've experimented all the way down to these little tiny devices. If you're streaming, Disney Plus or Amazon Prime or something like that, those are all built in WebAssembly because they're so platform neutral.
Wait, really?
Oh, yeah. Because essentially, think about, Amazon Prime, right?
Yeah.
How many SKUs, how many different devices do you suppose Amazon Prime is on, right?
A lot.
It's probably in the thousands or something like that. And you don't want developers having to rewrite that for every single platform. So what they kind of discovered was, we can write a thin shim for each particular piece of hardware, and then we can have a WebAssembly runtime, and then build one player that can run in all these different device profiles. BBC does it too, and they wrote a great blog post series about how they did it, how they built the BBC app with WebAssembly.
Oh my goodness, I'm gonna have to look this up because I did not get a chance to read that yet. Interesting. So at Fermyon, I know you all are doing a lot of open source around WebAssembly in general, and you've kind of been on the forefront, that leading wave of WebAssembly. What projects are there out there that you all are working on or even interacting with?
Oh, yeah. So, I'll start with Fermyon and work my way back.
Exactly.
Our big, and we're all, deeply steeped in the open source tradition, deeply steeped in the cloud native ecosystem. And so Spin is our open source platform. It's basically a developer tool that you can go from blinking cursor to your first deployed application in about 2 minutes or less. And it's all open source and, designed around a good developer experience.
Right.
But it is not, it actually uses another major open source project called WASM Time.
Okay.
And WASM Time is a WebAssembly runtime.
Gotcha.
So this is the thing that's going to run that binary format for you. The same way that, like Java has a JVM or .NET has a CLR, WebAssembly follows that same kind of pattern. And WASM Time is built by an organization called the Bytecode Alliance. Alliance.
The Bytecode Alliance.
Bytecode Alliance is sort of like, if you're familiar with OCI and the whole, the OCI containers and container images and things like that,
Yep.
they kind of maintain a number of low-level technologies that are necessary for the container ecosystem. Bytecode Alliance is that for WebAssembly.
Oh, okay. That makes more sense.
And they do a lot to kind of push forward specifications. And the specifications for WebAssembly, they go through the W3C.
Right.
So the same group that's doing CSS and HTML, those are the ones who are standardizing this.
Gotcha.
But of course, you want engineers who are building reference implementations.
Right, right.
And people who are actively developing those standards and moving them forward in conjunction with that. That's Bytecode Alliance.
Gotcha. Okay. That makes a little more sense.
Yeah. Yeah. And so they build WASM time, which is this runtime. They have like OCI, they have a whole bunch of other projects that are all sort of supporting the WebAssembly ecosystem in general. And that's really kind of probably the most important one from our point of view. The Bytecode Alliance is probably the most important organization. But the interesting thing about WebAssembly too is that a lot of the code is being developed on the browser side by the browser vendors. So of course the Chrome team and the Safari team and all of those teams are involved as well.
Yeah.
But sort of on the other side of the network connection from us.
Oh, that's pretty cool. So you really have quite a bit of an ecosystem out there for all of this WebAssembly. I remember the last time that I had you on a podcast somewhere. I forget. It was a while ago. This was not as mature as it is now. So like, has it just exploded or is it just me?
No, 2023 has been the year.
Has been the year for WebAssembly.
At the beginning of it, it was like, okay, there's a lot of things that have to move for this ecosystem to really hit that tipping point. And now here we're in November and looking back and going, wow, a lot of things have moved. So, I mean, the most audacious thing that the WebAssembly developers set out to do is to say we can build one binary format that all these different languages can compile to. And the reason why that's audacious isn't because there's something highly technical about that. I mean, there certainly is a lot but it's because you have to move. You have to encourage every single one of these language ecosystems to move.
Right.
And this is everybody from like the C language community through the Python and Ruby and Perl and PHP and Java and .NET and all of that.
It's a lot of people.
Yeah, it's a little on the audacious side. But the fact is, it's happening. Like, all these languages are adding support. And that, I think, is when I've been tracking this. I'm like religiously tracking this. Because it was like, if they don't move, then we cannot build with WebAssembly what we want to build. So I took the Red Monk language rankings, took the top 20 of those and said, okay, we got to hit 10 of these before we can do anything. And I think it's at 27 of them have begun or already have a WebAssembly implementation at this point. And
wow.
It's like,
so out of 30, did you say?
I guess I said the top 20. We actually tracked the top 30.
Top 30? Top 30. So you only have 3 holdouts.
Yeah.
Do you want to name? No, just kidding.
I will. Cascading style sheets is tracked as a language. CSS is not really. I mean, I feel like I should disqualify that one, but I didn't write the language ranking. So I just have to be honest. I guess.
Okay.
Objective-C.
Objective-C.
And everybody keeps telling me, we think we know that it does do it, but nobody has ever appeared to try it. Yeah,
no one's sure. Okay.
And, Swift has done it.
Right.
And basically everybody who used to do Objective-C seems to now be doing
Swift.
Yeah. So it's kind of like, I'm
close
sure
enough,
maybe. I'm sure it works over there, but let's focus on the language that really matters. It's Swift. And Swift WebAssembly implementation is cool.
Is it really?
Yeah. I like, I kind of like just looking at language ecosystems. It's like human languages, right? We all try and articulate a system with these different languages. And Swift is like one of those languages where I'm like, I see the world this way. I look at, Fortran, I don't see the world that way. Rust takes a lot of work to see the world the way that Rust sees the world. But,
but eventually you kind of find that philosophy of it.
Yeah, you do. Yeah.
Makes sense. So what's the third language that's missing from?
There is not, as far as I know, a Bash equivalent.
A Bash equivalent.
Shell scripting.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. I mean, I guess it's kind of low level, but not really. But it'd be really cool to have it still.
Yeah. Once again, Red Monk says it's a language, so I try to track it.
I mean, I guess there's also the question about security with WebAssembly. Is that going pretty well too? Like, people are really figuring that out? Because I know that was another question about how do we get to maturity from a security standpoint, as well as everything else. So.
Yeah, and security is such a hydra of a beast, right? It's got all these different heads that kind of rear up in different ways, and you're like, that's scary. I'm going to beat this one down. Oh, there's another one over here.
Yeah, exactly.
But, at the core, WebAssembly was built to be secure when it's executing because it's a browser technology, right? And anybody who says they don't run untrusted code is like, wait, have you looked at the JavaScript that's running in your browser? And WebAssembly has to have really a stronger security sandbox model than even JavaScript did. And that's one of the things that attracted us to it. But whenever you start, interfacing, whenever you build a system interface where WebAssembly can talk to a network socket or a file system or things like that, you're opening up attack surface there.
Yeah.
And so a lot of the specifications that have been developing over this year, like the WASM, the WebAssembly System Interface, is designed to do that right trade-off between securely granting the untrusted code access to what it thinks are the files on the file system while allowing the outside environment to go, yeah, this isn't really a file system. Or yeah, sure, we'll give them access to the file system here, but basically separating those security layers so that you can write code the way you always have written code, but outside of the sandbox, the operations team has the ability to say, okay, well, this is how this is actually gonna work.
I like that.
Yeah, I think it's a really elegant way of doing things.
Yeah, it keeps it nice and clean, but still gives you the flexibility if your organization is doing something trusted versus the untrusted stuff that you randomly find on the internet that everyone seems to run into, right? Interesting. I didn't know all this was happening in the WebAssembly world. I haven't kept up with it fast enough. But
I mean, I can barely keep up with it. It is literally my job.
I know. So in general, with the community, are you finding a lot of contributors are kind of jumping on board, or is it more... because we've been talking to a lot of different groups, specifically from like the Kubernetes world or even some of the other CNCF projects, and they're saying they're having trouble finding contributors. They're having trouble getting people to get time to contribute. Are you seeing the same thing with like this growing ecosystem versus like Kubernetes, which has been around for a while, obviously?
Yeah, I have a philosophy on this one, right? Because
I want to hear it.
We are definitely seeing quite a bit. I mean, I was actually kind of shocked to notice that we had, according to the GitHub stats dashboard we were looking at, we passed the 600 contributor mark.
Wow.
And I don't think those are all source code but it's, people who have opened issues, people who have weighed in on things. And that's really good, right? Yeah. That's a strong community this is for Spin, a project that's been around about a year and a half.
Yeah, I remember when you launched it. Right.
But I was in the Helm ecosystem. I created Helm, and you struggle a little bit to build up the contributor base, and then you hit that threshold where it's the new cool thing, and you just get a lot of contributors coming into it. So I saw the same pattern then, but then of course over time, Helm's contributor base has gone down or down proportionally to the size of the code base. And the same thing has happened with Kubernetes. The proportion of the size of the code base and the number of contributors has shifted again, And I really think that part of that is that, early on, you get the people who are really excited about the technology. We work on it all the time.
Right.
We make it about 2 years, 3 years, 5 years in. And then it's like, okay, now I need a break. I can't code on Helm anymore, right? And then you have to find sort of like the next team, right? That's going to take it over. And because we were so deeply steeped in the ecosystem when it started, we grew up with it. Right?
Yeah.
We know all the little blemishes and things here and there because we were around when we discovered them, and some of us were responsible for creating
maybe
some of
just
them.
A couple.
Yeah, maybe some of us made some bad decisions that you all live with. But when you bring in a kind of new team, it has a steep learning curve.
Right.
Oftentimes these technologies sort of lost the luster of newness and are just the normal. And I think it's a lot harder to build up a really good and maintain a really good long-term contribution strategy.
Right.
And I really admire the fact that CNCF really kind of took this head on. With the tag contributors and things like that. I think it's tag contributors.
Yeah, you're right. Tag contributor strategy.
And I just think that's phenomenal because I think a lot of open source communities sort of languish after so many years. And then a project that's really good and really useful can sort of slowly die by attrition. And I so much admire, still being involved in Helm but not writing code.
Yes.
The efforts to kind of bring in new developers who are passionate about it and have that moment to sort of start exchange information. I was over at the Helm booth chatting with some of the new ones, and that's good, right? That's healthy. And so in WebAssembly, we're still in the new shiny phase.
Absolutely.
And so we're growing very fast, and I think we'll probably be at around double or so the contributors by this time next year.
That's still amazing.
And then it gets into that, or you got to be committed for the long haul.
Yeah. Can you push through it? Can you get everybody involved? That makes a lot of sense. Because I know with the TAG, which is the technical advisory group through the CNCF for contributor strategy, it's been interesting watching how, because we have all these open source projects and they have different governance models, things like that, centralizing some of that I need help with how do I get more contributors? I need help with marketing. I need help with X or Y or Z. It's been really cool to watch that because suddenly all of these even tiny projects get access to the same amount of resources that everybody else does. So we feed each other almost, which makes it a great community to be part of. And I'm actually really, really happy that WebAssembly is part of it because
me too.
It's going to be really cool to watch. I'm a little afraid to see what y'all are doing by Paris, which is in March, because it's kind of a, oh no, what else do I have to keep up with now? I imagine it's quite a bit for you though, keeping up with all the different things.
But it's such a wonderful. I mean, and for me, the whole cloud native ecosystem. The story behind the cloud native ecosystem has very much been sort of. I think there are two different ways to look at the story. One is through the lens of finally building distributed computing the way it should be built. Right.
Yeah.
And it's about we went from monolithic. One-to-one relationship between your hardware and your operating system to this point where then you can run many operating systems on one piece of hardware, then microservice pattern, and then containers, and WebAssembly is in that vein, right? And it's just a continuation of this technology story that we're really excited about. But I also think there's sort of like on a different axis, right? This story about what the relationship between developers and operations teams has been, and how we've lived this, right?
Oh yes,
the contentious whose fault is it that production is broken right now, kind of thing.
I didn't make that bug, I swear.
Yeah, exactly. I swear I told you I needed that version of the library, or shipped you over something last week that's actually still in my inbox, and we went from SSHing into boxes at 2 in the morning trying to fix a bug to now having this sort of. I would hesitate to call it elegant, but definitely a robust system.
Reliant.
Reliable.
There's the word I'm looking for. And, it is near the end of KubeCon. I know. Just losing it at this point.
You're going to hear all the.
But
I think that's another part of this story, right? The other axis is we're gradually figuring out how we as humans will be able to collaborate better in our respective roles when the role of the developer is to build the code and the role of the operations team platform engineer SRE is to run the code, and run it very efficiently. And so I like the fact that WebAssembly is playing into both of those stories. And consequently, as a community, we continue to grow, right? It's not necessarily a hard reset where it's like, okay, y'all did this thing, now stop and we're going to shift over and do something new. It's just a continuation of the existing stories.
I admit it's kind of surreal. I don't know if it's just me, but like watching the difference from like even going back to like OpenStack and then coming through Kubernetes and all the microservices stuff, and now we're here at WebAssembly, and somewhere in there was serverless, somewhere in there.
Somewhere in there.
Somewhere. Just seeing that evolution is surreal to watch.
I mean, you read in history books about these times in history where it was like, oh, and in these 40 years, democracy was created, and then Locke did this, and Rousseau did this, and then you're like, nothing else. We'll never live through that again. And then it's like, oh, particle physics has this big revolution. And I think it's hard for us to realize, because we're in it, that we're in the middle of one of those. This is a historical epoch of time when we went from no computers to now being able to solve these highly advanced problems. And, it's a great time to be alive.
And I mean, you can pull out your phone and ask it questions, and it answers it kind of, maybe, if we're lucky,
Yeah, I'm playing with LLMs too, and sometimes.
That's a whole nother question that we could get down into, but we are getting close to time. So I want to give you a chance to plug anything you want. Like, you can tell people about open source projects that you have. You can tell people about how to get involved. Whatever you want to talk about, this is your time.
Oh, all right. I mean, I'll tell you our true startup moment.
Okay, let's hear it.
KubeCon's a big deal. We take it very seriously. So we had our release roadmap all lined up to release Spin 2.0 in time for KubeCon.
Oh, boy.
Big release for us. And it was supposed to release Wednesday. And then, of course...
You said supposed to.
Yeah, that's right. Because you know what happens. It's
I know what happens.
On the very last pass through the manual testing, somebody's like, this doesn't look right.
And
then
you're
it's
no!
Oh, yeah. And then it becomes the excavation routine where you're like, oh, how close to the kernel am I going to get before I find what's causing this problem? So we ended up not getting our release out until Friday night at 5:30 p.m. So it's like, this is true startup life, right? Where it's like, okay, what could go wrong? We're releasing at the last hour of the last day before we all get on a plane and fly to Chicago.
Nice.
And it went phenomenally well. We ended up actually trending on Hacker News over the weekend, which was really exciting. You know, every little thing is exciting for a startup. And we're like, oh, look, we're on the front page 2 days in a row. Yay. And then so, you know, here at KubeCon, we've been showing people the newest stuff out of the WebAssembly ecosystem, the component model, the ability to build polyglot applications, all this kind of fun stuff that's coming out. So Spin 2.0, you know, if I could wish you to try anything, you know, I'd wish you to try Spin 2.0, give it a try. And let us know what you think about it.
And get involved in the community. Why not?
Absolutely. Yeah. We have a great Discord channel to help people get going.
Discord is where y'all are.
So Fermyon.com/Discord will get you into Discord. And then, you know, developer.fermyon.com will get you straight to the developer docs. You can go through the quick start guide, have things up and running, and build your first application in 2 minutes or less.
Hey, get involved in the WASM wave, right?
That's right.
Hey, we'll leave it on that. All right, well, thank you so much for coming. This is DevOps Dispatch Live at KubeCon North America, Chicago 2023. I have the right year. My name is Laura.
I'm Matt Butcher.
And now we say bye. Thanks for coming.
Thanks for having me.
This was fun. All right.